go. Oh, I was worried it wasn't going to go live for a second. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I hope you all are well. We were sitting in a little bit of silence there because our program didn't look like it was going to go live, and then finally it just kind of popped in. So, howdy. This is our second to last live discussion of the year. Unbelievably so. I cannot believe this is coming to the end of 3 years.
I know.
Of our book club. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I remember a lot from our first year, but not a lot from the second year.
No,
and I don't hardly remember anything from this year.
No, I know. Same thing. The first year, I remember. I think it helps because of the gift we got from Allie too.
Yes.
That does remind me a lot. I do remember the books though. The same as you. Second year, kind of fuzzy. This year, big question mark.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm thinking maybe we might want to maybe do a recap or just quickly go through all the books and what we remember of them and what we rated them.
Yeah,
that'd be fun. That would be a fun video.
Mm-hmm.
But anywho, welcome everyone. If you're watching this in replay, thank you so much. Comment below. This is DoubleBookedCo. We are doing our live discussion on a Victorian novel that we read for Victober by Thomas Hardy, and that was Far from the Madding Crowd. This was my first Thomas Hardy read, and I know for Laura, you have read quite a bit, and one of your favorite authors, if I don't...
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, sounds good. So that's what we're going to be discussing this evening. So if you're here for that, we are here for that as well. But before we get into our live discussion, we do want to let you know of something very exciting that we are going to be doing for our January read. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go ahead and let Laura take it off from there.
Yep. Okay. So the first couple of years, I think we just did a general poll. This year, we tried to do something different, and Dani and I picked the title, I believe. Or no, we picked the genre, I think. And you guys picked the title. Was that it?
I think we may have just picked
something. It was different this year. I don't remember.
Yeah. See,
we're both idiots. Anyways.
I know we read That Summer by Lauren Willig, but I don't know how we got to that book.
I thought this was the year we read Self-Help. Hang on one moment. Let me
Lauren Willig was the year before. Oh my goodness. We did. We had a poll. We decided to do self-help stuff, and then Atomic Habits by James Clear was picked.
Yep. Thank God I made a list because I would not have.
Yeah, it all blurbs into one sometimes.
It does. Anyways, okay, so we're doing something a little different for this year. It still involves polling. Do not worry. We still want your opinion. Please vote. We'll have 2 votes for you this time, though. So, Dan and I were talking recently about, books we have really enjoyed as a book club. Brought just good discussions. We enjoyed the books. They were memorable. Maybe most importantly, we had a conscious memory of reading them. So we picked 3 authors we have read previously, and we're going to read another book by an author we felt was a good fit for a book club. Either we had a good discussion, we had a good time reading it, we remembered it, basics. So for the first 2 weeks, from roughly tonight, tomorrow, whenever we get the poll up, and until the 12th, we will have the first poll up, and that will be to vote on authors. So we have 3 authors to choose from, all women. They are Ruth Ware, Leanne Moriarty, and Amy Tan. So go ahead and vote for whoever you would like to read from again. And then on our live show, which will be the 12th, which is a week later than normal. So as Dani just pointed out to me, next week, Tuesday, is election day here in the States. She's a big watcher and wants to know what's going on. I avoid it like the plague because it terrifies me and makes me sick. So, but everyone who wants to watch, please go ahead and watch. So we won't be here on Tuesday the 5th. We'll be here the 12th instead. That will be reading sprints for The Yellow Wife by Sadika Johnson, which is next month's book pick. That was chosen out of a list from submissions by Kim. And it's a Civil War historical fiction. So on the 12th, we will announce which author has won the poll. And then that night we'll have a live, you'll have 2 more weeks and you'll have to vote. Why can't I speak? 2 more weeks to vote and choose from one of 3 titles for each of them. So vote now and then vote again in 2 weeks. And we will, at the end of the month on the 26th, when we do our wrap up, our live show for Yellow Wife, we will announce the book for January. So to reiterate, because that's me, you have 2 weeks to vote between now and the 12th, and it's to vote for one of these 3 authors on the screen that we have read from before. Then on the 12th, in our beginning of our live show or live reading sprints, we will announce the winner of the authors, and you'll have a chance to vote again from 3 titles by the author. So we'll announce that title at the end of November.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And I will get the poll up for these 3 authors after this live discussion. If you're watching this in replay, go ahead and go to our community tab. It's already there for you. So, but yes, so these 3 authors, like Laura said, these are authors that we enjoyed. We had great discussion and were memorable. So I'm excited that they're all women. I'm excited that there is some diversity in there. I don't think any of these authors are, well, maybe Amy Tan is American. She's American. She's Chinese American. But Leanne Moriarty is Australian and Ruth Ware is English. So it's a really nice mix of backgrounds. And I think that's why we enjoy their reading because it's just very diverse. So yeah. Andy is here. Good evening to you. So let's go ahead and jump into tonight's discussion, which again is our lovely Thomas Hardy and Far from the Madding Crowd. Again, this is my first time ever reading Thomas Hardy. I've heard the name, I've heard the titles, but I've always heard like tragic, long, like not fun, depressing, all of those words. So not really a author I've ever gravitated towards because depressing, sad, tragic are really not my favorite things to read. So when we got this book on our for our discussion, I was like, oh gosh, what am I walking into? I hope it's not terrible. But for you, Laura, this is an author you've read before. How much have you read?
I have read Tess of the D'Urbervilles and I've read Jude the Obscure. That's my favorite of his. It's also the most depressing. So those 2, and I have read parts of Jude again. I tried to restart it a couple of times and realized I wasn't mentally prepared to read it knowing what's coming. So I stopped, and I really enjoy his poetry very much. I've read quite a bit of that. So it's really just been poetry and those 2 books. He doesn't have a ton of books out there. I do own quite a few of them, of course, because I've been buying books for 40 years. So if I find something I like or an author I like, I just get it. So I have a lot of his obscure stuff, but not so much his like newer things. So this is my 3rd novel by him.
Awesome. Okay. Now, knowing what you know about what you've read, I know I kind of thought of this before and mentioned it, but when you were to recommend a book by Thomas Hardy to someone, is this a good starting point, or do you recommend a different one to start in his, genre, his grouping?
I would start with this one, absolutely. Yeah, because it is, of the 3 I have read, the least depressing by quite a long shot. There are some, as we know now, some not great things that happen, and tragedy and murder and all these things, deception, all this stuff that are sort of his hallmarks. But it's so much more palatable here. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe because there's not a lot of lingering, or I don't know. But I would say for sure to start here of the novels that I've read. Absolutely.
Okay. So let's go ahead and start the way we start all of our live discussions, and let's get our rating out of the way. So if you were to rate the book from 1 out of 5, 5 being amazing, how would you rate this book?
I'm going to give this a 4.25, but I think it will raise over time once I think about it more. I finished it today, so I haven't had a lot of time to really like ponder and mull things over. But yeah, 4.25. Really, really enjoyed it. Not as depressing as I thought, which was a relief, but also I was a little disappointed too that it wasn't like his other two. I will say that I really do enjoy his writing about nature. It's one of my favorite things about his writing is it's so descriptive, and the colors he uses to describe things are like, yep, I can very much visualize that. Absolutely. That's also why I enjoy his poetry as well. But that's a different subject, Laura. Yeah, 4.25. Really like it. Might bump up to 4.5 over time. I do want to read a couple of his other books now too. I sort of have forgotten about him. You know, he's just been sitting in the background waiting around forever because, I mean, he's dead. He's not going anywhere. So I might pull out like the Laodicean or something else by him and see what that is like as well. Because I think this one, Jude and Tess, the ones I have read, are probably his most well-known titles, wouldn't you say? So I'd like to read, oh, maybe not. So I'd like to read some more of his more obscure stuff and see. But yeah, 4.25. I did like it. What do you think?
Well, I would say from the beginning to like the midpoint of the book, I was like 3.54. Like I'm feeling a 3.54.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I started to get towards the end, I was like, okay, I'm like really feeling a good, strong 4 here.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end of the book, I was like, 5 stars, baby, 5 stars. Because this had everything that I consider like a happy ending.
Yeah.
And I'm like the happy ending queen. Like, I'm okay with tragedy and I'm okay with all those things as long as I feel like the comeuppance happened, the stuff that should have happened, and like everyone just gets what they're supposed to get at the end. And I feel like this was like wrapped up with a pretty little bow. And so many people hate that. Don't get me wrong. I know. People don't like that kind of thing. I love it. If it's done right, and it was done right here. I literally, there are some scenes where I literally slapped my hand over my mouth because I was like, woo! And then I was like, yes, and then I was like, so I was very happy by the end of this book. The midpoint, I was like, where is this going?
Yeah.
And by the time I was done, I was like, wow, like this is why I love classics, because there's just something about them that they're just wonderful. They're just amazing. And yeah, this is why I love East of Eden so much, because you know, you're reading and you're reading and you're reading, and then all of a sudden all these amazing things happen. So definitely, please, I'm really happy that this is the first Thomas Hardy that I've read, because it makes me excited to read more. I did get a few recommendations on my last Friday Reads video. I believe there was one, Mayor of something.
The Mayor of Casterbridge.
Yes, I got 2 recommendations to read that one. So I think if I were to move forward with Thomas Hardy, I would start with that one just because others have recommended that. I do own Jude the Obscure. So I think I'll save that one for, you know, when I'm feeling like I want to read a depressing book, which isn't very often, but needless to say, I do really like the writing. So it looks like Andy rated a 3.5.
All right.
So,
Andy, have you read from him before?
Yeah, let us know.
I feel like you might have in college or something, or taken some classes.
I never came across him on any syllabus. And yeah, this is my first time.
Yeah, I started reading him. It was all because of Kate Winslet, because I love Kate Winslet so much. And back in the 90s, she did an adaptation of, it was Jude the Obscure with her and Christopher Eccleston. And I love those two. So I wanted to read the book first because it was a classic and it was British. And like, oh, there's a movie with my favorite actress coming out. Like, I'm totally reading this book. And it totally floored me. It blew me away. And then they were really pretty faithful in the adaptation, I have to say. I watched it quite a lot. My roommate was like, can we please stop watching this movie? This is so depressing. Like, yeah, sorry, Carrie. I'll turn it off. Wait till later. So that's what got me started on it. And then it was just like book clubs after that. So never in a class or anything. It was Hollywood and then book clubs that got me to read Thomas Hardy.
I wonder if this one has a movie.
It has several. Mm-hmm. There's a 1915. There's like a 1960s version. There's like a 1988 version, and there's a 2015 version with Carey Mulligan and Matthias Schoenhort and Michael Sheen and I forget the last person's name. So yeah,
I do like Michael Sheen, so I might have to look it up.
Yeah, he plays.
Looks like it was a first.
Okay.
First party. Have Tessin really want to read it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So overall thoughts. What did everyone think? What did we think about this book?
I know. Well, I want to know what you think since you give it 5 stars.
I know. Okay, so like I said, the bow part, so I feel like everything that I would want to have happened to a character happened to the character.
Mm-hmm.
Except for, this is going to sound really funny, and I know you already know this, but okay, so it's Bathsheba Everdeen.
Yeah.
But in my head, when I'm reading, it's always Bethesda. I cannot get it out of my head. And every time I would say it, in my head, I would mentally go, no, it's Bathsheba.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd keep reading, and then it would happen again. It'd be Bethesda.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna say it right now. I already apologize if I accidentally call her Bethesda later on as we're talking. But anywho, Miss Everdeen. I feel like more could have happened with her arc. I feel like it was I feel like she got away with a little bit too much, but I'm okay with that because my main concern was Farmer Oak.
Mm-hmm.
He was like a baby chick that I was just like, oh my goodness, I just want him to make sure nothing bad happens to him, and I adored him the entire book. He just remains so loyal and so pure and good and speaks up when he is meant to speak up, and he is one of the most wonderful characters I have ever come across. I was just enamored by him. I really enjoyed him. I was so happy. He's way too good for her, but I really did enjoy him, and I was very happy. I was so worried he was gonna die, he was gonna be caught in the rain and he was just gonna die. I was so worried. Because I knew Hardy is tragedy, so it's oh, please just don't kill Farmer Oak, please. But I mean, with his name being Gabriel too, I was like, there's got to be something to that, so I'm like, maybe he is okay. Yeah, so I felt like all the characters really got what they deserved. Maybe not deserved, that's not the right word, but they all were afflicted in some way that I felt was necessary to the story. Let's just say that.
Okay.
So overall, yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought that the writing was incredibly readable. I didn't feel like I was being overwhelmed by, syntax. It was so easy to get through. I definitely think he, as many classic writers, write, the beginning of every paragraph is completely doesn't need to be there, but it sets the foreground. But it's I don't care about the history of gargoyles. I get it. The gargoyle mouth was pouring water into the grave. I don't need a whole entire page about the history of gargoyles and why they're on this and why these ones are crushed, but these ones aren't. And it just so I think that's what you see in the evolution of writing is a lot of that is no longer. We just get right to it, say what we mean what we say, and just because otherwise you lose readers, it seems. But it's all good. I see the importance of that. It adds to the story in a sense. But I did a lot of skimming of beginnings of paragraphs. It was kind of just, or beginnings of chapters. It was really easy for me to be like, okay, here we go. Here's the action. But what were your overall thoughts, especially being someone who's read Hardy before?
I did enjoy it. Like you said, it feels very even at the end. Like most everyone had a sufficient ending, retribution. I don't know. Like everything felt okay. I do feel bad for Boldwood. I really do. But also he wasn't right in the head. Like not horrible, clearly, like, and not a terrible person by any means, but he's just a little messed up. So I felt bad for him. But again, when someone's that far gone at that time, what would have happened? Like, so that kind of bothered me. But for such a long time, like up until the halfway point, probably, I was extremely confused because this is supposed to be, from what I have heard and read and things, like one of his biggest love stories. And I was like, there's no love story. Like, I knew it was at least 3 people were interested in her. And I was like, okay, there's like 2 at the halfway point. What's going to happen in the second half? What are you waiting for here? Come on, can we let's get going. Also, I can't snap. So I was a little disappointed by that. But the last quarter, just speeds along. So that was that in between that, between the halfway and 1/4, that last quarter point, I was like, okay, I see things are happening now. I had forgotten about Fanny. And right away when she popped up again on the road, I was like, oh shit, this is Fanny. Like, oh my God, this is bad. What's going to happen? Sergeant Troy is bad, which you and I have talked about, being Midsomer Murder fans. I kept picturing Sergeant Troy every single time. And I was like, no, not the same person. But what a shithead. I'm sorry, but he just is awful.
But what a perfect description of him when he is first, not first introduced, because we see him before when he's with Fanny. Right. But when he's introduced in the chapter where he meets Bathsheba, how perfect. He's honest to men, but he lies to women. Thank you. Yep. Thank you for describing every man out there. No,
yeah. Seriously, no, I don't. Feels like it.
It was like a perfect description. And that one I read twice because I was like, oh my goodness, this is you are not trying to evade anything for your readers. You're like, listen, this guy is not good. There's no redemption here. He is a fast and loose guy. He wants adventure. He wants women. He wants all the things. And he's going to do what he wants to do to get them. Right. And there's no deception here. I'm telling you straight out, this guy's no good. And then, but here we go. Right. Here's how this is going to go.
Yeah, I know. So I was really happy to see that he didn't just get to waltz in at the very end and take what he wanted. Not that Bathsheba would have gone back to him. I don't think she would have, maybe out of a sense of duty, but even if she did take him back, I think eventually he would have left her very shortly after he essentially robbed her blind again. It would not have ended well for her, certainly, if that was the case. And I enjoyed too that she never really believed his death that whole time, because she knew what kind of person he was. And yeah, it's been 14 months, but there's been no body. So, I'm not putting any stock in this necessarily, I really enjoyed all of these characters. I enjoyed Sergeant Troy for being a shyster and for being who he was and fulfilling that role so well. And I really feel bad for Boldwood. I just do. But I enjoy his character as well too, how he was just sort of living his life, never noticed women or anything before. And then after she sent him that Valentine, then he notices her, and it's his whole world opens up completely. It's oh, that was a character development I didn't see coming exactly with him.
Could you imagine Hollywood? Okay, let's do a rewrite. And this is a horror film about how you don't send like silly little notes to people that you don't know very well, because she basically, by sending this Valentine, completely ruined this guy's mind. Like, completely made him go mad. And like,
I can't believe,
like, oh my gosh.
I know, I can't believe that she knew it was some silly saying on the seal, but didn't quite remember, and let's just throw it on there. And then to realize it says, marry me, why wouldn't you remember that at all? First of all, that would be a big thing I'd remember, not a silly little thing. It said sentiment. And then I wouldn't just randomly send it to a child or my adult neighbor. I wouldn't send it to either of them. But then, like, no, it goes through anyways. Like, oh my God, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah, anyways, so I really enjoyed the characters. I am happy that for once, Hardy treats a woman character decently, because he does not historically. It's sort of like the joke of Hardy people, like, oh, how much does he hate this particular woman? Like, because they never have it easy. They often get blamed for things because of, the Bible. So it's like, oh, okay, sure, sir. Right. Because men are fine. They're all fine. But, women, gotcha. I was surprised by this, like pleasantly surprised. And I really liked how even it felt, even though it was wonky in places and like the storyline wasn't even, it still felt even to me because it never felt super rushed, except for the very, very end with like the last scene with Boldwood and Troy and everything. That was so fast. It was like, whoa, what happened again? But it just sort of kept going, like Gabriel Oak, just like steady pace right there behind you. And yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
And I can't believe how like positive this is. Like how uplifting.
Yeah.
Because I thought Tess would be more uplifting than it was. I mean, more for me. I'm not going to spoil anything, but the ending, I was like, oh, Jesus. I mean, it was really... So I was happy to see this ending for people.
Good. Awesome. Okay. I'm sure we'll have some more random thoughts throughout, as we usually do, but let's go ahead and get into our first question here. And this one I picked out from, so if you're unfamiliar with our book club, we do have a Voxer group that we also have. And I put 10 questions in there, and I just picked a few of them. So if anyone from the Voxer group are like, oh, but I want to talk about this one, just let me know, and I will grab that question. But our first question here is about character development. How does Bathsheba Everdene's character evolve throughout the novel? What key moments or decisions define her growth? And I kind of hinted at it a little bit before about her character arc. Because when we first meet her, she is extremely vain, extremely young and immature, and high and mighty in her aunt's dwelling. And we get her, we get the view of her through Gabriel Oak's eyes as he first sets eyes on her. And then we see her again as this landowner, this farmer, after she's inherited her uncle's land, and she has more of like a refined almost stature about her. She definitely seems a little bit more mature and more confident. I think there's still vanity there, but we don't see it as in your face as we did in her first appearance. But as we get to know her and see her point of view a little bit, we can tell that she's still very oblivious of her role and the importance of it. Like, she sees it as important because she's a woman, but she doesn't look at it at all angles of like how she is responsible for all of the people who work for her and all of the livestock. Like, she sees it as far as like it being hers, but not so much as like, I feel like she didn't really grasp the entirety of her role because she was a little frivolous when it came to Sergeant Troy. Like, she was gone for 2 weeks and all this stuff, and it's like, doing? Like, you're like a landowner, a farmer. You don't even have a bailiff. Like, why are you disappearing like in the middle of the night? So you see a little bit of that immaturity there. And I feel like it's not even until she starts really grasping the intensity of Goldwood's like madness that she's like, oh my gosh, I am a wicked, wicked woman, and I should have never done what I did, and I was frivolous with someone's feelings and intentions, and so you see it, and I think too, when Troy leaves too, she even confides in Gabriel regarding like, I really never had any intentions of marrying him, but because he looked at another woman, I was like, marry me. Again, vanity right in her face. Like, and she brings up too, like, that Gabriel never said anything about her being beautiful, but Sergeant Troy, that's all he was saying, all the flattery in the beginning. So like, she is very like, it's kind of like this throughout until she really, I feel like, until she really comes into like moments of actual like fear of her person from Boldwood. She's just like, oh my gosh, like, what have I done? That you see maturity there. And then obviously at the very end, there is a line where the men of the farm and village are there, and they're sounding the cannons, and they're all being very celebratory. And Oak laughs, but it's said that she only smiles because she doesn't laugh immediately anymore. And that to me, I feel, was a direct like quote, so to speak, to show like her maturity level is way different now. Like, she is more I don't know if subdued is the right word, but like, she is, what's the word I'm looking for?
Reserved?
Yeah, she's become more reserved because when she has been more like frivolous with her actions, it's had consequences for not only her but for others. So she's starting to kind of like rope it in a little bit and understand like what's important to be like real active on, and then what she needs to like rein it in, right? So I don't know. There's just so, I feel like she's like this for a lot of the book. And even like her actions towards her servant Lydia or Liddy, like, she's very childish in some scenes. And if anything, she should have been more of a role model because Lydia is younger. So I don't know. That was a whole long tangent. I apologize, but that's what I feel. That was my interpretation of her development.
Yeah, I mean, I think like anyone who's very young and she knows she's pretty, she had some money, you know, at the beginning, and to have this rando next door farmer who has hardly talked to her at all. I mean, yes, she did save his life, and yeah, he's been kind of weirdly watching her, in a neighborly but also not neighborly way. You know, to not be swayed by him, and I think a lot of people would have been in her position if she wasn't as sure of herself, or, you know, didn't have any money, didn't have this aunt or anything. I think that like I don't want to say lower class person, that sounds terrible, but someone who wasn't of her status would have accepted his proposal right away, because he's a farmer, he's got his own thing, he's not bad looking, like, he's been respectful to her, and to like the aunt knows of him, and he's respectful to her all the time. Like, they don't talk very much, but like, he's got a good reputation, and you know, he's in charge of his own stuff. Like, that's really appealing. An independent man, strong, who is kind and polite, you know, like, I would have fell for his first proposal. You know, I mean, I honestly would have, but she doesn't. And then to see her keep noticing him over and over again as she matures, as time goes on, as other stuff happens in her life. He's just like an oak tree, perfect last name, of course, not by accident, like just there all the time. And I think when the first time she notices really that she made a mistake with marrying Troy is with the storm the night after their wedding, when her stupid husband gets everyone totally pissed, and Gabriel knows something's coming, but he can't find anybody to help him because it's coming up and everyone is just totally out, three sheets to the wind. And he takes care of stuff, and then she finally realizes what's happening and goes out and helps him. And the two of them standing there together, like her bring stuff up to him to help everything. Like, she does her fair share. I mean, she does work hard. She's not afraid to get her hands dirty. And maturity and vanity have had their effects, you know, like she's not as vain as she once was. And I think that was the first really like huge smack in the face inclination. Like, she really effed up marrying him. And Gabriel just does not say a thing, and has been, like he said he would, he'll never mention it again. And he doesn't. Like, so I really appreciate that. And too, with Boldwood next door, what she said, I mean, like looking at it from the outsider's perspective and seeing how she is and how she has been with other men, what she said seems like, oh girl, this, don't say this, don't give him any kind of hope. Like the first time especially, like don't do this. But it does seem as a very offhanded thing too. If you were in the moment, if you were hurt in the moment, and she said, well, I know I'm not going to say, yes, I don't really know you. You know, I was just teasing, and I apologize for that. But, you know, I don't really know you to marry you. I can't say I love you. I mean, why don't we take time to get to know each other? That seems reasonable and, you know, like considered, and not being a jerk to your neighbor and all that stuff, even though you lit this spark that you didn't know that you really lit. And that was an okay response, but then he just ran with it again. But nobody really knows him. He's kept to himself so much. Like, even at the end of the book, when they're talking about what's happened to him, if like, where did he go, before they knew, he walked himself right to jail. You know, like everyone was saying, I don't know where he is. I don't really know. Like, his workers didn't really know him at all after decades of being with him. So he just really kept himself to himself. So, I mean, she's responsible for Boldwood, of course, but also not, because who could, an innocent in person, putting herself in her shoes, like comment like, I don't really know you, I apologize, but why don't we get to know each other and see what happens? And he just goes, great, she's going to marry me in a year. And then like she marries somebody else. And then no. And then, well, maybe 6 years hence. Okay. So then he forces her into this date, wear this ring. 5 years. Okay. 6 years on this date, blah, blah, blah. And then buying all that stuff for her and labeling it with her married name. Like, son, come on now.
Yeah, he was very, very, like, she was very much coerced in a lot, because I kept feeling very fearful. Like, if it was me, you're just going to tell him whatever he wants to hear to get him, like, because in all of the instances that it happened, like, they were on their own. She had no one could, you know, intersect and be like, hey, buddy, you're really, like, come on. Because he always did it when she was alone. He always like made sure no one else was around, and then he just kept harping until she finally just would say what he wanted her to say. And her internal monologue was like, I don't want to tell him this, but like he won't stop. Like, he won't stop. And you know, she kept saying like, I don't know where else to, like, I can't go anywhere. Like, he's here, and he, you know, and yeah, that final time where he was like, in 6 years, I'm just like, guy, like, come on, just stop. I know.
And she was trying, like you said, trying so hard to be like, how do I handle this? What do I say? And I think too, as women, we have all been in positions like this at a bar or with friends or just existing in the world. And some guy comes up to you and starts talking at you and will not leave you alone. And you are trying to figure out how to get out of this situation without the guy losing his temper, following you to his car, stalking you, grabbing you, like getting your drink. I mean, like, I've been there a lot of times myself. I'm sure you have too. I think every woman alive has been in that position, unfortunately. So I was really kind of flashing back to some stuff that happened to me. Like, God, this is just hard to know how universal this is still to this day. Like, that situation of really being stuck and you don't want to be a jerk and you just want to, like, please just leave me alone. Like, sincerely, I like, just please just leave me alone. But
even as she's getting ready to go to that Christmas party, I mean, like, she knew. She's like, this party is for this.
Yeah.
Like, this is specifically for this. That's why she got there late. That's why she tried to leave after an hour, because she was like, I don't want any part of this. It's like she had to, like, she had to participate in her own stalking. It seemed like. The only good part about it is, like, he left her alone during the times he said he would leave her alone.
Right.
But clearly, as we know by what was hiding in his closet, he had been building up and living the fantasy for that entire time. So he left her alone physically, but never stopped living in the fantasy he had in his head of what was to come. And like I said before, like, I blame her for sending that Valentine, but she is in no way to blame for his actions thereafter. You know, she tried to be plain with him and say, you know, it was just a little folly, like, it was just a, little silly thing, and I apologize, and I shouldn't have, done that, and I mean no harm, like, just a silly Valentine, and nope. Took it way too far, like, and I think she did consider, like, well, I mean, maybe because she was taken by him, when she first saw him, and the fact that he, wasn't like everyone else, and that kind of thing. So she considered it, but he was just so aggressive and so, like, he would not stop. And then to have Troy come to the scene, I mean, very like Rico Suave, and he's a soldier, and he's got a mustache, and he tells her she's beautiful within like 5 seconds of the meeting. So he ticks off all the boxes, especially saying that she's beautiful, because no one else remembers to say that nowadays. So I mean, it totally makes sense. I mean, how many movies do we see where the girl falls for the bad boy, the one that she's not supposed to fall for? And what does it do? It always gets her into trouble. And See, the funny thing with Sergeant Troy is I totally forgot that he was the same guy in the beginning of the book with Fanny. Really? When he appeared on the screen, when he appeared on the scene, I was like, whoa, this guy is like weird, and where did he come from? And then I kept reading, and I'm like, when are they going to go back to Fanny? And then I was like, wait a minute, is this guy the same guy who was supposed to marry Fanny, but they went to different churches, and like, screw you if you came to the wrong place, made me wait here all day? Well, listen, feller, people make mistakes, and from what I can tell, Fanny walked a very long distance to come and find you. Like, what are you like? So she went to the wrong church to make you stand there for so long. Big deal. Go next Sunday. Like, so yeah, when I finally figured it out, I was like, oh, this guy, like, he doesn't care. And then when, like you said, when we see Fanny, like, I knew right away. I was like, oh no.
Here we go.
Fanny. That's Fanny.
And of course she's pregnant, because when she goes that first night before we like really just figure out his name, then when she like along the river, counting the windows, throwing snowballs at the window to get his attention, then he's finally like, what? Right away I was like, oh, Fanny, girl, run. Like, do not believe a word this man says. He's not going to marry you. Are you insane? And then when he does show up, even though, again, wrong church, like All Saints, All Souls, understandable. Same town, though. Can't be that big. Like, no one ran back and forth and noticed, hey, there's a bride sitting over here by herself. Oh, there's a groom over here. That's weird. Like, no one said anything in a gossipy little town for hours. Please. No, that I did not buy. But to have him be so huffy about it, absolutely. And she's still like, oh, no, please, like, forgive me. Like, it just, oh, honey, no. Like, you are so much better than him. And so much better without him. Like, he is such a jerk. I mean.
Yeah, her whole thing, that was so tragic. That was tragic, especially when.
That's the Hardy woman.
Yeah, that when she was basically like grave robbed as she was like laying dying, like that was so sad. I was like, why did you have to put that in there? Like this
Mm-hmm.
poor pregnant lady getting her
Yep.
pockets gone through by these two prostitutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
And that
that's
poor dog gets
crazy.
stoned away from her, and like, he tried to help
Yeah,
her, and like,
yeah.
yeah, it was
Well,
like,
and that
oh,
kind of irritated me too when we finally get like what happened to Sergeant Tricks. I'm like, why did they never like? How were they like? They were going the same way. She was trying her darndest to get there. Like, how did he not see her? Like, and then he's all mad, like, oh, she's doing it to me again. Really? She
okay.
didn't do it to you on purpose the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So why would she do it to you on purpose this time?
Because he's never,
But, yeah, it's never his fault. But
no,
it's like, why didn't he like walk around, try
yeah.
to find her? Because maybe he could have found her
Mm-hmm.
and like helped her. Like, I don't know. I mean, do you get a feeling of like what it was? Do you think it was just like she was like starvation and like the elements, that kind of thing? And
Yeah,
because she
and
was pregnant, just yeah.
yeah, poor, pregnant, not obviously not married, and like she was ditched. Like lots of people saw her get ditched by him, like on their wedding day. I mean, so after she tried to apologize, and that was public when he dumped her, in the town square, and I mean, yeah, pregnant on her own, workhouse is all she's got. So like, just trying to get there and exist in the elements and try and get by in the world. Like she was doing piecemeal sewing and stuff, and she wasn't great at it, but she's trying to like support herself and survive to find him again because she's so in love with this dickwad, and he's just, you know. And then,
Yeah.
oh, I love her. He probably did at some
I
point because
love
she
her
was the only
best.
one that
Like
like
I love
adored
her
him,
best. What does that even mean? You love
right?
her best because you
Because
certainly
she
don't love
adored
her more
him.
than yourself.
Right. No, she adored him, and she didn't know him. So she couldn't call him out in any he was faultless in her eyes. So of course he adored her. You know. This is not about Bathsheba at all. I know, sorry, but like we're just
No,
rambly talking. I know.
no, we always go off. It's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, I ding that.
I know. But she is very much a hardy woman, like you know, faultless, steadfast, true, loved someone, bad circumstances, dies terribly.
Yeah, like
Hardy.
he paid her more notice in death than he did in
Yeah.
life. But it's like, okay, so she gets this like terrible life, terrible death,
Mm-hmm.
and then they just wash out her entire grave.
Yeah,
I was like, what? Can you just leave this poor lady alone? Like,
I know.
leave her be. Leave her be. Like, leave her be. That's terrible.
I,
Terrible. Oh, so anywho, let's move on. I feel like we kind of already discussed this, but we'll
probably
just
a lot of them.
briefly touch on it. So independence. So Bathsheba's values, she values her independence highly. How does her desire for independence impact her relationships with Oak, Troy, and Boldwood? I'll let you go first since last time I totally
Oh God.
went off on a tangent.
Okay, well with Gabriel, because he's always just there, and she rejected him, and he just took it and said, "Okay," and like didn't pitch a fit and was like, "That's fine." And then when they meet again, and he realizes it's her, and she realizes it's him, like, oh, okay. So I think that's the first time she really gets a hint of the kind of character that he really is. And since her life has changed so much, she sees that he really hasn't. Like he's on tough times right now. And that really upset me that poor dog didn't know what it was doing and drove that whole flock off the cliff and they had to kill it. I was like, oh, let's read past this. It was so horrible. Because like it doesn't know. Like I get it and understandable, but oh horrible. Anyways. So when she sees him again and he sees her, like he's like, oh, your life has changed and you've gone up quite a bit and you've got this farm and everything else. She's like, oh, he's still this person. Like just randomly happens to be passing and helps save all of this stuff, like equipment and animals, whatever. It's a huge fire. So I think over time, as he just again stays there behind her, like doing his job, even when he's not really getting paid for it necessarily. He is the bailiff. I mean, he just is. She realizes she can still be independent and is not going to try and change her or do anything to her. So, like, he is the right person for her, but she's got to try it with Troy, who is like Wickham in Pride and Prejudice. He's
Thank
flashy,
you for
he's a
saying that.
soldier.
Thank you for saying
Yep.
that, because the whole time I was like, this is like the guy from
Wickham.
Pride and Prejudice, and I couldn't think of his name. I knew it was a W, but I was like, I can't remember, but it's totally this guy.
Yep. Thinks his something doesn't stink. Thinks he's hot stuff because he's a soldier. Flirts with everybody. Nothing really matters to him but himself. All about appearances. If he can get some beautiful person to like, yes, that would be great. It makes him look better if this beautiful person. I mean, like, but ultimately he's just a party boy who's a narcissist and just about himself. Like, she had to go through all that stuff because I think everyone has an inappropriate crush on somebody like this at some point. Like, just a totally bad person for you. Like, just not whatever. But we all go there, whether we do something about it or not. Like, you have a crush on someone inappropriate like that at some point, right? Some total jerk. And then with Boldwood, because again, nobody knew how mentally ill he was, but I think she had really tried, because she had gotten burned so badly with Troy that she was more cautious. Like the first time when he proposes after the whole incident, she handles it okay, like, I apologize, but no thank you, but maybe I don't know you, and then to keep kind of in that weird situation stuck, what do you do? And Gabriel says nothing, does not participate this whole time. She's figuring out on her own, like, what to do with all these different men, because Boldwood says the right things, like, we can, split houses or whatever. We can do whatever you want. I respect you as a farmer. He says all the, like, these nice, right things, and he wants to take care of her and love her. And, it sounds fine. It sounds good on the page, but she doesn't, it's not the independence that she craves. And because she has, I think, earned her right as a farmer and, someone who's fair with her people and payment, certainly she's on time with things, and she treats her staff kindly and well. No one is abused or put out, or like when she tells, was it Lydia or someone else in her household to go like be with her sister or aunt for like 2 weeks or whatever, she was like, yeah, that's fine. And she seems to handle everything else okay without them being there. And it doesn't like, now you're finally back. Like, none of that happens when they come back. It's just like, oh, that was great. How did you have a nice time? Like a person, I think I think she just, as she matures and grows, as everybody does, all these interactions with men, the two, of course, like crazy and then like hidden crazy. There's outside crazy and inside crazy. You see her try to like she tries to keep herself independent of everybody all the time. But Gabriel, just by being himself and just not saying anything and just working hard, keeping his nose down, watching and observing, certainly, because how can you not, especially with everyone, all the gossips, all the men gossiping in the fields all the time, like, he knows what's going on. But I think she just finally realizes after, well, he's the only one alive, number one. Number two, like, last one standing. I mean, but like, she really realizes she can still be independent with him and she can live their life and have that farm, and things can just be how they have always been without this like inner angst and turmoil of the drama and stuff of Troy and this like crazy like obsession, like pushiness of Boldwood. She can just be herself and all this like crazy noise just dies down. So she's still got her independence, even though she's married. And technically he owns her and all the property and stuff because, patriarchy. But it's not that way because Gabriel's not like that, See, again, big blab.
No, that's okay. Yeah. I feel like in the beginning, toward the middle, before Sergeant Troy, I feel like her determination to stay independent was much fiercer.
Okay.
I feel like her denial or rejection of Gabriel wasn't necessarily because she didn't like him or because she didn't think it was going to work or anything like that. But I think at that point in time, before she even realized she was going to be inheriting a farm, I feel like she just wanted to be independent and felt that she was young enough at that point that she needed to see a little bit more of life and further prospects. I don't think she wanted to accept the first proposal from any man, regardless.
Cut her down right away. Yeah.
Yeah.
How old was she at the beginning? Do you remember?
I think she was like eight. Was she?
I think like 16 or 19, but that's a big difference.
Yeah, because
let me see if I can figure it out.
Because he's 8 years older than her, and I think when they were married, she was like 24. And I was like, wait a minute, where did this start? I don't know how much time has passed, but she is 24 at the end of the novel.
And I thought that, not to interrupt, sorry, but like just before that, I thought they had mentioned that she was 27. It was like so many years and 3. And I was like, oh, she's 27 or 28. That makes sense. But then when she was 24 at the end, I was confused.
Yeah.
Like, huh?
You know, because he's all the ways that they say like numbers is weird.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure she was 24 at the end.
Yeah.
Because Sergeant Troy was 26 in his passing. So that was what was on the gravestone. And poor Fanny was 20.
I know. We all do.
Yeah, so I feel like that was her rejection of him wasn't necessarily rejecting him as a person, but it's just rejecting the idea of being married at that point in time and being basically owned by someone else. Because I mean, as a woman in that time, I mean, I said this on my Friday reads, but I mean, you basically lose yourself because you're a piece of property,
right?
You know, so you are more to yourself single than you are married at that time. So, and I think then when we see her as the landowner, and specifically when we see her at the meeting and she's handing out wages, you see a very strong sense of independence, a very strong sense of competence coming from her.
Yeah.
And she's even providing like bonuses in the wages.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that shows a lot of her commitment to the process. Like, you know, like she's tackling this being a farmer very seriously and considering it a long-term endeavor. And at that point, I felt like, in understanding her character, that she really didn't have any plans to marry, like, I wouldn't say at all, but not for a very long while.
Right, yeah, not on her list.
She was going to ride this independence train for as long as possible. And I think so when she sent that Valentine, again, it was like an off-the-cuff, haha, in the moment, her and her lady's maid, or whatever they're calling it in this book, just like a little frivolous thing, like, oh, haha, should we send it to the boy or send it to Boldwood, since we're talking about him in this moment and we're curious about him. Let's throw this book on the floor, which, see if it lands open or shut.
I know. It was like, okay, wow.
But I think even then too, it was like she was refusing the marriage, not based on him, though, because she was trying to be kind and she was trying to be, you know, she's trying not to upset him, but I don't think she was intending to marry anybody at that point. Her intention was not to be married yet. And again, even as she is going forth towards Bath, and Oak and the other person stops her, she even in that moment goes, oh yeah, okay, what am I doing? Why am I chasing after this man? Like, I'm more than this. Like, I'm just going to go to Bath and I'm going to tell him that I am not interested. I want to end this little tryst that we have going on, and I'm going to come back and get back on the wagon and focus on my farm and do all the things. But then when you're in presence of idiocy and you have a problem with vanity yourself, it's your crutch, yes, that's what happens. You end up marrying the wrong person. Because like you said, when the rain comes, the thunderstorm, and no one is helping except for Oak, she realizes in that moment, like, this guy doesn't care about my farm. He doesn't care about the future of this farm. And yeah. So again, a big long waffle about it. But I really do feel like she tries really hard and she sways, and I think that happens to anyone. We are human. To err is human is to err, So for her to ebb and flow in her right and wrong choices, so to speak, it's just part of her evolution of her character, of trying to figure things out and trying to find out what's going to work best for her. And even when they're married and he's like spending all of her money at the races and all this stuff, when he is then gone, it specifically says in there, she starts like making her money again. She's focusing on it because she's independent. She's on her own. She's not worried about marriage. She's not worried about this. She doesn't have a, soul-sucking husband taking all of the coffers, So she is a very independent woman. And I think what we see with Oak in the love story part of it is, so he was originally a farmer and it totally went bust. It didn't go well. He had to sell it all to come to even. And then working for her, he ends up, he's a very humble man. He's very, minimalist. He's not out, spending all of his coin at the pub, all that kind of thing. And then he's not only working for her, but he's working for Boldwood. And he's even got so much clout with Boldwood that Boldwood is like, I'm going to be giving you my farm, essentially. So by the end, they're equals. They're not, I own this and I'm going to be over you as a husband, or I'm like this and I'm going to be over you as a wife because I have the land or you have the land. They go into it as not only friends because they've had all this time, they've confided in, she's more confided in him than he in her, but they have this mutual respect for one another. He obviously has loved her from the get-go, but very reserved and very much letting her know at the right time. And I feel like by her having the opportunity to get to know him and for him to become more of an equal with her and her to be able to maintain her independence whilst they are equals is the only moment of which they would be able to move forward in a relationship together. And it was perfect. It was beautiful. And it really kind of stinks that like everyone had to die for it to happen. But I feel like also like all of the chaos had to be removed. Because
permanently, and not like pop up again like Troy or something. No, it had to be settled so they could be settled.
Yeah. Because everything was so chaotic. Like, Oak, not a chaotic person, not a dramatic person, very even keeled, always giving great advice, always really listening, observing, and providing the perfect advice at the right time, keeping his mouth shut when he knows he should, encouraging people to do what they are meant to do. But then you have Troy, very chaotic, very dramatic, very in your face. And you have Boldwood, who is a ticking time bomb, very unpredictable, unbeknownst to everyone around him. He the fact too that like he didn't save any of his grain and corn during that storm. Like it's clear that his head is not in the right place. But I was very happy, kind of a side note for him, I was very happy that he did not end up being hanged, because I felt like that was Hardy's way of really being like, okay, the guy's crazy, He is. But he doesn't deserve to die for it.
Right.
And I was really happy that he shot Troy. I was like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
because what a like prick.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
gonna go to America and be there for like 9-10 months of just dilly-dallying around, doing whatever you want to do, decide that it's not good enough for you, and then come back to England. And in all of England, you have to come right back to where your wife is, and then
Right.
like pretend to be someone else so that she doesn't recognize you. Like, what a joke!
Right. And then
what a joke!
When it's revealed, then he's like, "Okay, let's go home, wife," and she was like,
Yeah. Well, it's
no.
like, and it was funny because like when you lock up and you have the scene where like the people are gossiping about it, like the guys that are in like before even coming in the front door.
Yeah.
It really it gave me flashbacks to like the bar. Like when you go to the bar, there's always like a bunch of people right outside the door, like smoking, and they're all like chit chatting. And in most cases, they're bitching about somebody inside.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you get the lowdown before you get in the door, and then you're like, oh, that must be the girl that they're talking about, or that must be the bartender they're talking about.
Yep.
So that was a comical moment for me because it totally gave me flashbacks.
Yeah, people don't change that much.
Yeah. So, yeah, but oh my gosh, I was happy he was not able to kill himself in that moment because,
horrible.
But yeah, then just like left and walked right to the jail. Like, how apropos. Like, I liked that.
Yeah. By the way, I was looking, in my scan in the first 4 chapters before, like, they like go their separate ways for the first time, they never mentioned her age that I saw in scanning.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it's in there, but I just didn't see like numbers typed out or anything at all. So. Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember the end though. I feel like it said 24.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then at some point he mentions that he's 8 years older than her.
Right.
Oh. And then he also mentions that then Boldwood is 10 years older than him.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So he's 18 years older than she.
Mm-hmm. So kind of twice her age. I mean, really.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are past the hour mark, so I don't want to hold you all up too much longer. So we'll kind of like breeze through these next couple. I think I just have 2 more here, but I think we've talked a lot about the last one. This one we'll just breeze right through because I don't have a lot to say about it, but what does the title Far from the Madding Crowd suggest about the characters' lives in the setting of the novel? How does it reflect Hardy's view of rural versus urban life? So in most cases, whenever I read a book, the title matters, right? You're always trying to figure out, why is this book titled this? I could not figure it out for this one. And I don't know why. Like, Far from the Madding Crowd, I didn't get it. I was like, there was never really any different area that we were seeing other than the rural one. So I was like, what crowd are they far from? Like, I was not connecting this. This just went way over my head. I did not connect anything. What do you get it? Like, I don't get it. And I'm upset because usually I'm pretty good about this stuff, and I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand this.
I think it just, I mean, I haven't looked at this at all. And there's, I have the Barnes & Noble edition, which I love the edition so much. So in the back, there's little lists of things. And one of them, I think, is about the title. I did not read it yet because I just forgot to read it, quite frankly. But from what I just sort of pieced together myself, like Far from the Madding Crowd. So the Madding Crowd is like a city, right? You know, it's a big, loud place. There's lots of people. It's kind of chaotic and crazy and loud, right? So the whole thing is set in rural England. It's all pastoral. There are really no crowds to be in anywhere. It's just almost all set on farms with individual houses being picked out, and the like mention of a town a few times. Then there's that circus or whatever that comes to town, and there is the fair or whatever. But those are, again, very rural settings still, even though it's crowds of people. But I think it's that even though you're not in a big crazy city, there's still plenty of things to go mad about in a small town because life still happens. People are still people. Like Sergeant Troy was nothing but maddening. His whole character, he just effed up everything everywhere he went with everybody. Fanny, his buying himself out of his whatever title, whatever, sojourners thing, I don't know. Going to America, thinking I'll just come back and pick up where I left off again because my wife won't care. Like all that stuff was just crazy making. And Boldwood, who went crazy. Like, you can't avoid it. People are still people. So even though this is a pastoral tale set away from a crazy crowd, like there's still plenty of crazy to be had out in the middle of nowhere. Like don't don't discount the country as being some paradise where nothing really ever happens and everything is pristine and pastoral 24/7, because it really is not.
Right. So
right.
It's just a really unique and duplicitous way of saying rural.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy town rural.
Yeah. Rural isn't like perfect, the country is perfect.
Gotcha. Far from the madding crowd. I do like the title. I mean, it's a unique title. It's one that you aren't gonna miss. Andy agrees. It's they're not in a big city.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last one we have been talking about throughout, just intermingled in what we've had here, but the concept of love. So each of Bethesda's, there it is. I did it. Bathsheba's suitors represents a different type of love and relationship. What do each of these relationships reveal about Bathsheba's desires and fears? Okay, so first, just even saying what love is which. So for Oak, that is the constant love. That is the steadfast. That is the friendship in love. That is the equality in love. For Troy, it's desire, it's passion, it's jealousy. Yes, everything that like heightens. It's the lust. It's the betrayal, all the fiery emotions, right? And then with Boldwood, it's the convenience. It's what you should do. It's
it'll be comfortable,
easy. It's comfortable. It's something that you don't have to think about. It's just there, and it'll work out. It's fine. But what do they reveal about her desires and fears?
I just think it just represents most of us in our relationships, going through life. What you think you want in people changes so much over time, or what's attractive to you changes so much over time. And as you get older and mature, like hopefully the crazy jealousy stuff is like beyond unappealing to you right now, and you have outgrown that, and you're like, that's nothing but drama and wasted energy, and no thank you. It's not anything real. It's just chaos, right? Boldwoods, it's comfortable. Everyone loves sweatpants, like nothing wrong with it. But is it what you really want in a relationship? Like, yeah, it's fine. It would not be the worst thing ever. But the love you have would be a friendship at best. It would not be romantic or adoring or anything. It would just be there. It would be fine. It would be stable. You would have a safe life. You would have food on the table. But it's not really love or full of desire or anything. It's just there. And then there's Gabriel, who sees her as an equal, knew her before she had money necessarily, before she inherited this farm, which could really make her a big deal in lots of people's eyes, because she's a beautiful woman, as we know, as she and everyone keeps saying she's a beautiful woman, but she has her own farm. Like, not a lot of people can say that, let alone a woman. And she could have very easily been taken advantage of by a lot of people, because they could just say, this is mine now, and you don't know anything, and I'm a man, and this is my property, and get to step in. But he proposed to her and loved her before she was even really growing up and aware of herself. And he has been by her side and not pushed. And like you said before, revealed himself to be observant. And when people ask his opinion, it's measured and thoughtful and it's good advice. And he just does what he is told and then doesn't have to be told to do anything. And, he's just a decent, solid person and, not bad on the eyes, and neither is she. And I think you come around to that original person after a while and you're like, oh my God, this has been here the whole time. What a ding dong I am.
Yeah.
You hope for that.
Yeah. But I think it was cute too how she was kind of like, you're a ding dong, because he was like, couldn't you ever just let me love you and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
She's like, well, maybe you should ask. Like,
Yeah.
stop telling me about it and like ask me. Like, that was so cute. And he was just like, oh,
yeah.
Oh, well, let's go for a walk then.
Yeah.
It was so cute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely think I'll have to find the movie because I really did like this story. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, anything we did not cover, anything we didn't discuss.
I'm sure a lot, but I can't think of anything.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything that was like, oh my gosh, why did that happen? But no, I think we discussed a lot of it. We really went through a lot of material. Not so much in each question, but yeah.
Yeah. Or in a order of any kind necessarily, but we talked a lot.
Yeah. And I know too, like, so just in general, in his writing, he's known, I think, for like foreshadowing and all that kind of stuff. And all of the double meanings of things, like you said, Oak being the last name, and the thing that I really liked, that I thought was also really creepy, was when the rain was coming and it was like the toad and the spiders and the slug, and I'm like, no, just stop. This is like, it's like a Halloween book. Like, why don't you stop? The spiders were dancing and blah 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 blah, and like, oh, and I was like, oh, if you're gonna tell me he killed this poor toad, like,
right.
But yeah, no, I really did enjoy this. Even, and sometimes, when we have a discussion, by the end of the discussion, our ratings are completely different. But I'm still good. I'm still good on the 5-star. I think I really do. I really liked how everyone really got theirs. And I in agreement, definitely, like, Boldwood did not deserve what became of him. But I do not blame Bathsheba for the extent of his madness. I mean, her Valentine was the catalyst, but she at never one point ever led him on to believe that she was, meaningful in that sentiment. She was very plain in speaking and stating, she's very clear, like, I really apologize for this silly thing. I really did not mean for it to become what it is. And I think just based on her own safety, she just had to say what he wanted to hear so that he would stop.
Right.
So yeah, I'm surprised that it never did anyone kind of intervene there.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, mention stuff about it, but no, like, I really thought Oak was going to, but he was staying very close to Boldwood's side as far as getting that farm inherited to him. And I don't think he did that like maliciously. Like, he wasn't like, "Ooh, I'll just be his best friend," even though he's a crazy person. I think it just happened that way because he's just in general a good person. But
right, but don't forget too, all the stuff that happens, like everything we see that where we know Boldwood is unraveling mentally, that's just the two of them. And she doesn't gossip about stuff. She'll like sometimes say things in a roundabout way to her maid, but even that doesn't really have a follow-through where Lydia could put something together to be like, oh, you mean Boldwood is nuts? Like, that's not a thing that happens. So all the really crazy stuff that happens in a private conversation.
Right.
Boldwood, to all appearances, after that year, and then the 6 years thing, when he starts with his farm go, that's the only outward side I think really that everyone was like, what is wrong with this man? Because why would anyone do this to all of this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then you think, well, he's sick, but then no one says anything. Again, like it just, yeah. So I mean, who could have been like, Mr. Boldwood, sir, y'all done lost your mind. Like you gotta, no, you gotta reel it in.
Reel it in, buddy.
Yeah.
Reel it in. Well, that was a great discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everyone who is here and for everyone who is watching this in replay. Please feel free to leave any comments below. We always try to respond. And we love to hear your thoughts. So let us know in the comments. For those of you who are going to be continuing reading with us, our final book of 2024 is coming up here in November, and that is Yellow Wife. So definitely pick that up if you're looking to read with us. It is a historical fiction set in the Civil War. So definitely join us if you are interested. If you are interested in joining our Voxer group, please let me know. I can just pop you in there. But other than that, we will not be here next week. So usually we're here the first Tuesday of the month. But with it being the election night, we're going to go ahead and just go. We're going to do our reading sprints the following week, which is November 12th. So we'll be starting our November read on November 12th. And then on that same night, that'll be the last day, or the day prior will be the last day, but that's when you will find out which of those three authors that you'll be able to. That's when you'll find out which author was selected, and we'll give you the three titles from the author to vote for our book that we will read in January. And then that will be revealed during our live discussion for November's book on the 26th of November, which is the last Tuesday of the month.
Yep.
So, awesome. Well, until then, we hope you all have a great evening and that you're doing well. So,
thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.